Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to St. Paul's Universalist Church. Glad to see everyone made it out in between the winter storms. It occurs to me that winter is kind of like that guest you have over for the holidays. And then, Christmas, New Year's passes, and you're like, well, I should be getting to bed, and it just doesn't take the hint. Well, this year it did take the hint. But got about to the end of the driveway, and left its scarf in the house, and now it's come in and poured another drink, and you're like, so, enjoy the season. It's back, like we knew it would be living here in upstate New York. In the way of announcements, I have at least two. It's already the third Sunday in January, and as is our usual practice, we collect for the food pantry. So when the collection plates come around for the offertory, metal plates are for the church, and wicker baskets are for the food pantry. Please consider giving. It is a basic need, and you don't think of that being a need in the United States, but it very much is. There also will be no service here next week. Instead, we are invited to join our fellow Unitarian Universalists for a cluster service at the UU Church of Utica, which is at 10 Higby Road. The four churches in what we call our Mohawk Valley cluster take turns hosting one another at various points in the year. We did it in the fall. Next in line is Utica. They do the last Sunday in January. COVID obviously threw a monkey wrench in things for the past few years, but we're back to gathering in person. And 10:30. 10:30. I was going to say, I believe the service starts at 10:30 with a luncheon to follow.
Yes.
Correct? All right. Are there any other announcements that anyone wishes to share with the congregation? Okay, hearing none, let us proceed to our musical call to worship. We welcome you. We know you come here for different reasons: to find community, to seek your spiritual and personal truths, to question, to nurture your heart and soul, to be nurtured, to explore new ideas, to find comfort, and perhaps to find the answers to some of your biggest questions. And so we welcome you. We know you come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, and different backgrounds. We hope you will find comfort, connection, challenge, and love here. We hope you will find ways to provide outreach to others in our congregation, in our local community, and indeed in our world community. We welcome you. As is our tradition, we open our services with the lighting of the flaming chalice. As I do so, I invite you to join me in the words, "May this flame, symbol of transformation since time began, fire our curiosity, strengthen our wills, and sustain our courage." And our opening song is number 115.
Jeff, what sheet did you read from? Our music hasn't matched yet.
Apparently the old sheet.
Yeah, okay, because I had switched everything.
Oh,
okay. To
I
match
did.
When you switched the services, I switched.
Oh, all right.
So it's 117. Okay,
Is it 117 or 118?
118.
118.
117 is the
Follow that, don't follow my book.
Okay, because the prelude didn't even match. Okay.
Okay.
No, I did it. I just changed.
I did, in fairness to Mark, I did, like, we talk about services in July, and when I was writing the newsletter, I decided to change this Sunday's topic.
I switched. Yeah, I did. Okay.
Right.
Make sure
You
get
switched it, but I probably was looking at an old copy.
Okay.
Live theater, you gotta love it, right? Okay.
Like this all day.
Yes.
You can count on it, Kevin.
118.
118.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Please remain standing and join me in the words of affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. Quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another and with our God. So is that different?
That's correct.
Okay, awesome. All right, see, Kevin?
Come live in the light, shine with the joy and the love of the Lord. We are called to be light for the kingdom, to live in the freedom of the city of God. We are called to act with justice. We are called to love tenderly. We are called to serve one another, to walk humbly with God. We are called to act with justice. We are called to love tenderly. We are called to serve one another, to walk humbly with God. Sing, sing of the song, sing of that great day when all
and the food pantry collection to support the work, the wonder, and the witness of this community.
Rejoice in love we know and share, in love and beauty everywhere. Rejoice in truth that makes us free, and in the good that yet shall be.
Just out of curiosity, Mark, was that the right song? No.
It's okay.
It's funny, it just, side note, my emails, I'll get barraged with emails, and then Mark will say, oh yeah, I sent you that, and I'm thinking, I don't see it, and then I'll do a search under Mark's name, like, oh, yeah, there it is. I don't know.
It's okay. You have less work for the next PowerPoint. 'Cause the next PowerPoint.
Oh, that's 2 weeks from now? Yes, all right, okay. All right. That's why it sounded like, kind of Black History Month sort of stuff. Yes, okay, that makes sense. In any event, I invite you to join me now in a time of prayerful meditation. These are the words of Tanya Coffin. Great Spirit, teach us to consider how others experience the world, to understand how our reality and their reality are different, and yet they share qualities with the same core desires. Teach us to listen for shared feelings and for places of connection. Teach us to be curious and open to hearing differences. Teach us to love into brokenness, to give space for, to be patient with healing. Let us be strong in our vulnerability, in our not knowing, in exposing our less than perfect, scary parts to those in front of us. Give us courage to face judgment, scorn, and hatred because of the greater good. May we be disciples of essential goodness, strong in our knowing that in each being there is a divine light of the soul. Give us the strength, Almighty Spirit, to keep feeling empathy even when we are tired and broken. For it is then that you are feeling the empathy through us. Amen. Let us now share a moment of silence where we listen to the wisdom of our hearts and minds. join in responsive reading number 468, please. These are the words of George E. Odell. We need one another. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted.
We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid.
We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again.
We need one another when we would accomplish some greater purpose and cannot do it alone.
We need one another in the hour of success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs.
We need one another in an hour of defeat, when we encouragement we might endure and stand again.
We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey.
All our lives we are in need, and others are in us.
And our next song is in the Teal Hymnal Supplement, number 1014. It could be argued, very easily argued, that today's world is more connected than ever. Or is it? Today's sermon is a cautionary tale. But first, let me start by sharing a story. One that some of you may recall from your Sunday school days. This is the story of the Tower of Babel, which is found in the Hebrew Scriptures, specifically the 11th chapter of the book of Genesis. And I took that passage. This is from the limited edition, Jeff Frank edition of the Gospels, or not the Bible, not the Gospels. This is the Old Testament. In ancient days, the people were one people, and they spoke one language. They moved into the land of Shinar, and on the plains of that land, they decided to build a city. And as a testament to their greatness, they set out to create a tower in the center of the city that would reach up to the heavens themselves. When God saw this, he was concerned. He said, "Look, they are one people, and they all have one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so that they will not understand one another." And so God caused them to speak in different tongues, and he scattered them all over the face of earth. The tower was never completed, and then from then on, it was known as Babel, which means a confusion of voices. Now, on its surface, this is a myth that explains why people spoke different languages and lived in different places. It's also a lesson of hubris and what happens when human beings try to put themselves on the same level as God. Some artists over the centuries have depicted the story ending with God destroying the tower with lightning or fire. The bottom line is that a proud and united people end up confused, disoriented, and fragmented. And going back to where I opened, we live in a time when, due to amazing technological achievements, we have the potential to be more connected than ever before in our history. But instead, we often are more separated than ever, with ever-widening divisions. Indeed, I would argue that we are living out a modern-day version of the Tower of Babel and its aftermath, a Tower of Babel 2.0, if you will. Except, this is no myth. This is no story to explain events. And we started building that metaphorical tower in the early 1990s with the advent of the internet and the age of information. As someone who grew up regularly visiting the library and reading encyclopedias for fun, the internet was a dream come true. All that knowledge at one's fingertips. It connected the world like nothing before had done. We could easily be in contact with others around the country, around the world. Ideas could be shared. People with similar interests could join one another virtually. So many applications with regard to keeping in touch, getting our news, doing research, finding recipes, shopping, and so on. The applications were nearly endless. And for the better part of 15 years, it was arguably a boon to humanity, with the ability to unite common people as never before. Dictators struggled to suppress it. Indeed, the internet made such democracy-driven occurrences as the Arab Spring of 2010 possible. And the following year, that same internet empowered an uprising against economic inequality during the Occupy Wall Street movement. But in the case of the internet, like so many technological advances, there are unintended consequences. And there's that old saying that knowledge is power. And like all power, it can be used or abused. The destruction of our modern Tower of Babel began between 2009 and 2012 with a drastic rise in the power of social media. It was around that time when platforms such as Facebook and Twitter introduced the ability to like or dislike, share, or that's the symbol for retweeting. So if you find something on Twitter you like, or information you don't like, you can retweet it. You can put it out there to other users. And this process allowed common people to take ideas and share it with dozens, hundreds, and potentially millions of people around the globe. Now that seems like a good idea, right? Sharing is good. Getting feedback on ideas is a good thing. But as I said, there are often unintended consequences, and in this case, a cascade of them. Each of them, like Babel of old, a confusion and scattering of the people. It allowed small groups of aggressive people to attack much larger groups of people online. Not surprisingly, the fact that the internet allows for a certain degree of anonymity compounds the problem. Think about it. It's human nature. It's a lot easier to be rude and obnoxious to someone over a computer halfway across the country or even on the other side of the county, especially if you don't know them or if you're not speaking face to face to them. And while that's getting better, there's little oversight when it comes to social media trash talking. It often gets argued, well, it's freedom of speech if I want to be a jerk to someone online. In some ways, it's a modern day version of the Wild West. And social media also gives disproportionate power to people at the extremes of society, often overwhelming the moderate majority. Compromise becomes a dirty word. If you're on the other side, you're viewed as misguided, perhaps even evil. If you show any sympathy or openness to opposing views, then you're a traitor to your own kind, and your own kind will attack you. People in the majority feel overwhelmed, unheard, and berated to the point where they decide, I'm not even going to engage in social media. Social scientists refer to this group, and you may be able to sympathize. You may feel that you're one of these people. The exhausted majority, the people that why do they keep just bringing this stuff up and rehashing it? And if you're a woman or a minority, you're even more likely to be attacked and marginalized. And interestingly, from a statistical viewpoint, those Americans with the most extreme views on social media tend to be both rich and white, an elite subset of the country who don't represent the larger society. And this in turn has led to a dramatic rise in polarization, populism, and especially the spread of misinformation. And the repercussions of that have gone far beyond the internet. It seeps into our news cycles, our politics, our everyday discourse. Just in the way of examples, it is hard to imagine things like critical race theory, cancel culture, being woke, Melania Trump wearing a jacket that read, "I really don't care, do you?" Or Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wearing a dress with the words, "Tax the rich." All of those things. It's hard to imagine them causing the degree of outrage that they do if people didn't put in their 2 cents on these matters and magnify them over and over through the forum of social media. You'd still hear about them, but not to the degree that you would otherwise. And I could go on and on. But look as just one example, okay, how this impacts things outside the internet, off the internet. The recent COVID pandemic response. At a time when we should and could have come together, misinformation was rampant. People on the far right dismissed vaccines and derided masking as an infringement of freedom, so much so that COVID literally started killing them at a higher percentage. And on the far left, the push for safety precautions often got to the point where it was so overboard that the economy suffered and mental health numbers spiked from the result of that. And then it came back to social media. So this is like a boomerang effect. Big Bird, the guy, the big yellow bird on Sesame Street, put a Twitter post out, appropriate, there's a bird there, showing that he was getting the COVID vaccine to make kids feel better about it. And this caused Senator Ted Cruz of Texas to attack this fictional character on the forum of Twitter as a form of propaganda. Things have gotten so out of hand that one of the engineers at Twitter who helped to invent the retweet or sharing function has since said that he deeply regrets it. That it was like, quote, handing loaded weapons to a 4-year-old, end quote. What we have here is perhaps the greatest example of confirmation bias the world has ever seen. I've talked about it up here before, but just to recap, confirmation bias is a phenomenon whereby we are most open to information that fits our pre-existing beliefs and more dismissive of information that doesn't fit our narrative. I'll give you a quick example. Say I showed you a study supporting the idea that human beings are contributing to climate change. You will be far more likely to accept that if you already believe it than if you don't. And we all do this. We are all susceptible to it. We can't help it. We can, however, be aware that it's out there, which would cause us to step back and maybe reassess. But my point is that social media has made the situation infinitely worse. It's created a place where one person's facts are equivalent to another person's feelings. So, well, here's a fact. Well, I don't feel that's correct, so your fact is wrong. It used to be, and many of you can remember this, that our society in general shared common facts, common themes, and common stories about who we were as a nation and who we were as a people. It was as though there was a single large mirror that we could all collectively look at. We might not have agreed 100% about everything, but we shared a common view. We were looking at the same mirror. But that was the pre-Babel world, if you will. Today, since 2009 to 2012, it is as though that mirror has been shattered. Different groups have picked up the individual pieces and proclaimed those shards as the only mirror, the only truth. And anyone else looking at those other pieces, that's a false reflection. It is very possible today to live in a world almost exclusively in our own bubbles, gathered around our own pieces of broken mirror in an echo chamber as if that was the only truth, fragmented more than ever before, having the capability of coming together, or despite having the capability of coming together as never before. And not to get all gloom and doom, but it's not just something, happening here, it's happening around the world, and our nation's enemies are well aware of our fragmentation and take full advantage of it. Russia and China and others have programmers who create online mechanisms designed to exploit our divisions. They're called bots, and they imitate real people. And what those bots will do is they'll find something controversial online, and then they'll put out strong opinions designed to fire up one side against the other, stir it up and get people going, and get us attacking one another. And one of the biggest casualties of all of this that I have talked about are our young people. People born after 1994 have never known a world without the internet or some form of social media. They did not create the problem, but they will certainly have to deal with it and the fallout from it. Depression and anxiety among our young people are on the rise. Those numbers are going up, and it was already bad. It was already bad. The pandemic made it worse. They have to contend with online bullying, and social media barrages their self-esteem when people like or dislike or ignore what they put online. It's kind of a, some stranger or some friend of a friend of a friend online can have some disparaging comment, and these kids are shattered inside. They don't maintain their self-esteem like we did when we were younger. And it really does impact them. I can't tell you. Probably working with young people, that has been one of the biggest challenges. I have kids that will leave for the day, best friends. Come in the next day, blowing up the class, won't talk to each other. I'm like, what happened? You guys are friends. Well, she unfollowed me on Facebook last night. Or he said this and I blocked him. And then he blocked me. And then we can't talk. And then we can't work it out. These are real things. Now, having said all of this, I will still stand up here, perhaps hypocritically, and tell you that I believe that the internet is the greatest invention of my lifetime, at least so far. But I want to share with you an amazing and scary fact. Prior to 1900, the rate that human knowledge doubled was approximately once every century. So every 100 years, what the human race knew doubled. It is currently estimated that it now doubles every 13 months. And with the help of the internet, for good or ill, we are well on our way to it doubling every 12 hours. Imagine coming of age in a world like that. So much knowledge. We are drowning in knowledge, but we are also starving for wisdom. In the original story of the Tower of Babel, God was behind the confusion and fragmenting of humanity. But our modern-day Tower of Babel needs no such divine intervention. We are doing it to ourselves. Now, it occurred to me as I was writing this that I would be addressing an audience comprised of people who arguably use social media less than a lot of other people out there. But to paraphrase the ancient Greek statesman Pericles, just because you do not take an interest in social media does not mean that social media won't take an interest in you. And it most certainly does. It shapes our world tremendously in ways that most of us don't even think about, and that I've only just touched upon here. Regardless of whether you use it a lot, a little, or not at all, it's still shaping the world that we're in. So what do we do about living in the ruins of the fall of our metaphorical modern-day Tower of Babel? What hope do we have? Well, it helps to step back and keep in mind that despite what happened in the original story, humanity survived the fall of Babel. Life went on. Yes, there was destruction, confusion, and loss. But then, there was time to reflect, to listen, to build. And there are changes that we can make, both systemically and spiritually. And I'd like to propose these for your consideration. We can restrict and better police the age at which young people can access social media. They're not going to like it, but we could put this in place. Currently, you have to be 13 to have like a Facebook or Twitter account. Perhaps that age should be at least 16, perhaps even 18. Let these young people have more time to navigate the shores of adolescence, because we all went through that before social media, and we know what it's like. So before they get thrown into a world of likes and dislikes, just let them be young people. And give them give kids a chance to be kids. Encourage them to engage in free play. In other words, get them outside or get them in groups away from their electronics. And if you have children or grandchildren, nieces or nephews, you know how hard that can be. Each of those little hits they get on their phones or their computers or their tablets, it's a dopamine hit in their brain. It's like a little pleasure kick. But we need to try to get them away from that and let them be in situations where they have to learn to negotiate, set rules, and compromise as they will when they're in the adult world. Think about when you were a kid. You'd be playing down the street, and we're going to play, cops and robbers. Well, what are the parameters of that? What are the rules of that? How are we going to do this? Okay. Those are things that we had to learn and benefited us as we got older. Depression makes people less likely to interact with others or try new ideas or experiences. Anxiety makes new things feel more threatening. And social media can compound these. Mental health needs to be a priority and not a stigma. And I'm happy to say our society is starting to take positive steps in this direction. Not so much because of social media, but because of the fallout from the pandemic. But that's okay, as long as we're looking at mental health. And we can make it harder to share information with a click of a button. One proposal is to allow for posts to be shared 2 or 3 times, and then that fourth person, if they want to share it, they're going to have to electronically copy, paste it, and spread it that way. That way, you're not restricting speech, but it would cut down on an environment where you can just push a button and boom, hundreds of people are exposed to it, and then they spread it, and so on and so forth. And we can also take steps to verify that people on social media are in fact people and not programs designed to sow discord. And that would also cut down on the threats, the racism, and general ugliness of online interactions because, as research has shown, antisocial behavior is far less common when there's the ability to know who is saying it and where they are. And we need to encourage the creation and growth of organizations that seek to promote common ground interactions and solutions. One way to fight that confirmation bias I was talking about is to foster peaceful discussions with those who hold different views from us. And that sort of thing happens to me here. I'm not going to, call out names, but there are some of you who I disagree with on some matters, or who disagree with me. And yet, in a place such as this, we can calmly discuss it, listen to one another's viewpoints. And yeah, we're not, we still aren't going to agree 100%, but at least hearing, on a calm, rational level, why people think the way they do makes you more open to, compromise. Because that's the way of the world. It's like we have to kind of work out common ground. And there are organizations that are developed and in place that are promoting this very thing, both in person and online. So those are the systemic solutions. Here are a couple spiritual ones. First, the golden rule. It's such a simple idea, a powerful idea. And it can be found in various forms across most of the world religions and cultures. Treat others how you want to be treated. how easy to see the benefits of it, how challenging it can be to put into practice. Imagine if we did this not only in person, but within the context of social media. In other words, don't say something to someone online that you wouldn't want them saying online to you. Again, simple wisdom, not so simple to follow. The second spiritual proposal that I will leave you with comes from the work of the late Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. In one of his many writings, he talks about how to relate to one another. And he refers to our Buddha nature. The common misconception is that it takes a tremendous amount of effort in order to become enlightened, like the Buddha did. But Thich Nhat Hanh puts forward a simple notion. Being a Buddha involves mindfulness, compassion, forgiveness, and love. Now, we may not always be that way, but all of us are that way at times. We all have those characteristics, and we all exhibit those characteristics at times. Han proposes that we cultivate those qualities in our dealings with others. He uses the example of a garden. Each of us has a metaphorical garden within us, with the seeds of love, kindness, and compassion, but also the seeds of anger, anxiety, and fear. Those we relate to, in person or otherwise, have similar seeds. It is up to us to choose which of those we will water, grow, and cultivate, both in our gardens, in who we are, but also in theirs. Are we going to pour water on their anger? Are we going to cultivate the seeds of their fear and their anxiety? And what is that going to accomplish? So here we sit in the aftermath of Tower of Babel 2.0. Our society is confused and scattered, but we are not hopeless. We can and we must reflect on what is important, listen to one another, not merely to reply, but to understand. And in so doing, we can build a new and better future for ourselves and those who come after. May it be so. And our closing song is number 117.
O light of life,
this gathers community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other. Our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, and most importantly, be loving. Please join me as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice flame, daring to carry forward the vision of this free faith, that freedom, reason, and justice will one day prevail in this nation and across the earth.
He loves a religion which like sunshine grows everywhere. Its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed of truth, its scriptural words of love.
Now bridge over troubled water.